Hi everybody, this is Ophidian. I'm back again. Welcome to this new video. A couple of weeks ago I started a new series on this channel, and it was a challenge series, and the first edition was, could I make a complete song with just one sample of a 909 kick drum and no other source material? And I got a lot of great responses to that. A lot of people watched it and gave their opinions on what they expected and what it turned out to be. And it was really cool to see a lot of interaction, but also that a lot of people actually really liked the song as well. That was the result of this challenge. So anyway, here is challenge number 2. I think this time the introduction will be a little bit shorter than it was the first time, because this is a harder challenge to explain. There's not as much you can show. It might not seem that elaborate to you, but let me assure you, this challenge was way harder than the first one was. So what was the challenge? This time I wanted to make a track that was completely monophonic. So what is monophonic? A lot of people who don't work with music or sound professionally, the first thing that might come to their minds is like mono, as in a single sound source instead of stereo with two, or surround sound. But in this case, mono means there can be only one sound at any given time. If you have a monophonic analog synthesizer, it means that you can only play one note. If you play any other note, it cancels the first note and moves to the next. So in the specific case of making a hardcore sounding track this way, it means that any hi-hat, any snare drum will cancel the kick drum or will cancel out the melody. You cannot have two at the same time. This is really challenging, and feel free to try this one out and you'll figure out that it's very hard to do, because it's very hard to build an arrangement. You can't have a melody line over a kick drum, over a drum pattern. You can't have rises. You can't play any chords. You can't play a bass under your melody. All the tricks you would usually do to make your track interesting don't work. They're not allowed. So I had to define these rules for myself a little more specific, because there are a lot of ways to cheat. For instance, I did not use any VST synths, or analog synths for that matter. Why? Because it's very easy to use the volume envelope of a synthesizer to make it so that there's a release time to your sound. And this will mean that if you play any new sound, the first one will slowly decay. It will have a timed release, and this allows you to overlap your sounds a little bit. And I didn't want to allow that. So the synth I did use is sampled. It's actually sampled from a Sylinth, but it's just one note that I played, and then I sampled a bit of it and then used that. Another reason I didn't want to use a synthesizer is because synths often have 2 or more oscillators, which means you can use oscillator B or 2 or whatever it's called in the synth to play something else than oscillator 1 or A. For instance, a different note or a different octave or a completely different pattern. And that would not be monophonic, because even though strictly speaking you can program that on a monophonic synth, it would be a way to be able to bypass the rules. And I know if I would allow that I would find a way to completely use the synth to play all kinds of layers, play chords and pads and multiple melody layers on top of one another. So the only thing to do was say synths are not allowed. But I did allow effects. I already imagined before starting this challenge that if I would not allow any delays or reverbs, that it would be very dry. If you'd have a sound with an echo, that would mean it would be the only sound you can hear at that point. So I decided I'm allowed to use effects, and you will hear I used a lot of delays and reverbs to create space in this track. I'll insert a small bit of the result here so you can hear what it would sound like with completely no reverbs or delays at all. As you can hear, it's not very musical. It doesn't feel like it's going to be an exciting track. But other than these delays and reverbs, I have not used any way to bypass this limitation. I used renoise once again. I actually want to use Cubase to do these challenges in the future because more people understand the basic principles of Cubase and it's easier for them to follow. But for this challenge, renoise was just so fitting to use because you can set it to have only one channel. And if you have only one channel, you are limited by the program to just trigger one sound at a time. You could, in theory, do that with Cubase, with an audio track, but the result would just be one big track of audio, which looks like any other song in the end, because eventually every song comes down to one file, right? Anyway, so I used renoise one more time. Spoiler, I'm gonna have to use it again once because I already know that what I want to do for challenge number 3 is once again very fitting to do in renoise. So you're gonna see it one more time, but after that I promise I'll try to work in Cubase or Ableton just so that people can have a better sense of what's going on. With all that said, I think it's time to show you guys the track. Because of the monophonic nature of this track, there was a chance to illustrate what was going on in the song with not just showing the renoise programming, but also have something symbolize every sound. So I went for some GIFs that I stole with permission from Redditor Exocortex. I took the animations he made and synced them up and cut them up and used them to symbolize every sound that is played in the track. Small epilepsy warning, I hope it's not too bad. I thought the result was pretty cool. It gives a little insight as well to how these sounds look to me, how they feel. Anyway, so here's the track. Enjoy, I hope you guys like it. Alright, that was my track for challenge number 2. This one has a name, it's called Only One. It's time to get this uploaded and over with. It's the middle of the night and I should be getting home. I'll start work on challenge number 3 pretty soon as I have a couple of other things sorted out and done with. Thanks a lot for watching. This has been Ophidian and see you next time.